is up, guys? It is your host, Daniel. This is editor Daniel. Um, Obviously, you can tell I'm not in the typical setup. That is because I am currently working on editing the third video in this series. And after doing three of these interviews and booking two more, I have realized that the podcast has completely transformed into a new niche. Um, so I am changing the name of the podcast. So in the first three episodes, you are going to hear me refer to the podcast as Lazy Day Business. That will no longer be the title. Now the title is going to be the Christian CEO Podcast, and we are going to pivot from just interviewing young entrepreneurs to specifically interviewing young, successful Christian entrepreneurs. Yeah, so without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy these episodes, and thank you so much for tuning in. All right, what is up, guys? It is your host, Daniel. Today we are doing our very first interview on the Lazy Day Business podcast. And today we have Will Reese with us. So first question, if we just want to jump right into it, is what's your origin story? How did you get started in the field that you are working in? What is the field that you're working in, and what are some of the early challenges that you had?
Yeah, so I'm William, and you kind of you kind of spitballed them at me. I think we were gonna do one at a time, kind of dive into it.
We
But
could, yeah. Would you?
yeah,
We could do one at a time. So
like
first
I'll
off, what?
unload the whole clip. Like,
Okay. First off, okay, what's your origin story? Like, how did you get started?
yeah, so it's funny because I actually didn't know my origin story for a while. It's funny I say that, but um, when I really thought about it, this was a couple years ago. I realized my first like kind of foray into business and entrepreneurship was actually like 6 or 7 years old. I went to this amusement, or it's so weird. It's in California, and it was like this adventure park. I think it was called.
Okay.
So they had like tire swings, like zip lines, like metal slides, like all of that. But they also had this area that just had like a bunch of wood, and like they would give you like some nails and like just random stuff you could play with, like paint and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy because nothing exists like that anymore for kids, but
No.
you could just go and have fun. And my siblings were just like, on the zip line like all day, doing all the fun stuff. And I just spent the entire day like building this lemonade stand with scrap wood and whatever little tools and hammers and stuff they would give me. And it came out so rickety and like like mismatched pieces and all that, but it was legit. Like I even had the post with the sign above
Dang.
it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And after my dad like tried to shove that into his sedan and it was like hanging mostly out of the trunk, we finally got it home and spent the weekend just like in front of my house. It was supposed to be a lemonade stand, but he never actually got us lemonade, so we just ended up selling like Kool-Aid. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
from my house selling Kool-Aid, and then got my brother involved, so he started selling it with me, and then his friend from across the street came over, and we were all three doing it. And yeah, like first day made like probably a little bit over $200 doing that,
Dang.
which for 6 7, like that ain't
Yeah.
bad. That's
Yeah, that
like
ain't bad at all. Did you have a permit?
nah.
Nah.
Nah. But it's funny because now that I think back on it, I think the fact that the stand was like so rickety and like so like clearly built by a
By
kid
a
that didn't know what
7-year-old?
they were doing, yeah, like that probably added to like, oh, I'm gonna go and get something from him, you know.
Yeah,
So
probably. I mean, off camera, me and you have had conversations about like being authentic and not forcing it. And it's like at 7 years old, that's the most authentic lemonade stand. Like, you built it literally from scratch, which is kind of hilarious.
yeah,
So,
no, for sure. And I think it. looking back on it, it really taught me a lot about business and kind of probably was the basis of, my passion of wanting to do it more.
Mm,
Um, so like over time, I've just grown into it. And then, yeah, I just realized like, being able to make money, to do things with your friends,
right,
yeah, just kind of, I don't know, like create, I guess is really the basis of it. It's
right.
really kind of the core driver. And yeah, obviously being able to employ people, like that's kind of crazy that I was like employing people at like 6, 7. I didn't realize
That's awesome.
it.
That is awesome. Okay, so going from 7-year-old William to a lemonade stand, what was like your next business venture? I imagine it's probably sometime in your teens, but what
Yeah,
was
so
next?
my next time I was living in Centennial, the area that you're familiar with, like
Mm,
in front of this area called Corner Star.
mm,
And one of my friends and me, we just got some like chocolate bars, like the big pack from, I think we started at Target, and we just got like, it's like $20. You get like, 26 bars or whatever. And then we just went around house to house selling them for like $2, and then made some money. Then his parents saw that we were making money, so like they took us to Costco and we got like even better bars and like
dang,
better pricing. Got that
right?
economy of
Full.
scale going.
Yep.
And, like started
That's
making money.
crazy.
So that was like the second little teenage venture. From there, I got into more business training. I did Johnson and Wells Business Camp, which was pretty cool.
Okay.
Um, and we worked with OtterBox, got to go and see like their headquarters, which was in Fort Collins at the time, and it's pretty dope. Like they had like this huge like brass slide going down the center of the headquarters with like all these otter statues on the side of it, and
Huh.
yeah, just a pretty cool little spot they had, and did some other things. So that's where I just kept like kind of growing and learning along the way. Like there's definitely a lot of things where you start to learn
Right.
like the do's and don'ts. And I think even that first experience really taught me the value of like, I feel like any good successful business, it really starts with like one person just being willing to sacrifice and like not do
Mhm.
fun things, like not go on the zip line and
Right.
do all the things like that, and actually like focus on building something even when it looks kind of stupid and derpy. And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
eventually once you have that thing, then more people will come, and you start making money with it, people will definitely come. And you know what I mean, and you get
Right.
employees and you kind of build it up from there. So,
Yeah, I think
um,
that's kind of ironic that you mentioned that because I mean that's kind of what this first episode is just start it. Like, and I
yeah,
think a lot of like entrepreneurs like us, they get that analysis paralysis, but it's so valuable to just start something, even if it's, this first episode of a podcast is probably going to be my rinkety lemonade stand. So,
yeah.
but we just have to start, and so, but yeah, that's super cool. And so, like, what were some of the early challenges that you faced in your entrepreneurship journey?
Um, like you kind of touched on, definitely analysis paralysis can be part of it. You know, I feel like one of my favorite Bible verses is comparison is the thief of joy.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's very true in business. Like thinking back to my early successes, I literally had no point of reference, no comparison, no like, oh well, so and so is doing it like this, like maybe I should do it like that. Like no, it was just like literally just an idea I had that I thought would be cool, and like just did it.
Yeah.
Like didn't think about a sales script for how we were gonna sell the candy bars or like
Right.
anything like that. It was just like, hey, like we're bored, this would be probably cool and make us some money, so like let's do this
Yeah.
one again. And I feel like that's really been, it's almost like getting back to that. Just as you get older, as you learn more, especially as you know all these marketing strategies, all these, you know, um, case studies, comparisons, all these things where they're all helpful and useful, but you also don't want to get into the over analyzing mindset where you're just kind of stuck and not actually taking the action, because
Right.
ultimately the action is going to be the best teacher too. Like experience is going to teach you a lot more than what you could have, you know, learned from doing another analysis of the situation.
Right, exactly. Or just like one more YouTube short, and then you're apparently just gonna find the golden secret to money. It's like, no, dude, just get out there and start and get your reps in and start getting your bruises. And yeah,
Yeah,
very
for
cool.
sure.
Very cool. I think that's some very valuable answers. And then so moving on from that, I mean, can you share like a pivotal moment or experience that kind of shaped your business philosophy?
Yeah, so I would say my personal philosophy was pretty heavily influenced by a job I had where I was selling cars. So I was
Okay.
doing car sales, and I went into it being like, oh, well, I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm going to be like the honest salesman and just kind of help people get into the right vehicle. And, I'm not going to try to like upsell or do any sleazy sales tactic. Like,
Right.
there to help people, right? And my dealership, the compensation structure we had actually kind of facilitated that too because it was a flat comp regardless of what vehicle you sold. So
Mm.
there was like no pressure on, like to me, it didn't matter if you bought, it was a Chevrolet dealership. So it didn't matter if you bought like a Corvette or Tahoe or, like a
Right.
Chevy Trax, which is like the lower model of when I was selling.
Right.
So it's like that was cool. But what kind of shaped my my outlook on it and the philosophy is I realized like even if you have good intentions, like there are just especially with something like car sales, right? There's a lot of people that they go in wanting what they want, like
Hmm.
they want like the big Tahoe, like fully optioned out, all the bells and whistles and like everything. It's like they don't have the credit for it, the income for it, like nothing, but
Right.
you're gonna want that and like they're not gonna want to hear you like try to say like, oh, you should probably just get this instead, and then you could build your credit and come back in 4 or 5 years and get like that Tahoe. So I just saw that enough where I was like, man, like I'm really just facilitating people's bad decisions in business,
Mm.
and I didn't really, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't get like I don't have like a passion for that kind of thing.
Mm.
So it's more like, hey, I want to switch to, doing things where it's more mutually beneficial, and doing things where I feel like the overall impact I have is more positive. And also that shaped my journey in business because it was really the time I realized like marketing is more powerful than sales because like the marketing is what brings people in the door. The marketing is what makes them want that like higher end Tahoe in the first place, and like sales on the individual level.
Hmm.
uh it's really you know just that final step, but almost all the groundwork has been laid, and that's partly why you can't even get them to change the vehicle because like the marketing has already been so effective, right? Whether they
Right.
realize it or not, like they've they've been sold on it before they even come in the door. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I realized like the power of marketing, and I also realized like what I ultimately want to do with business, which is to like build cool things and to help people in a way that I see as like beneficial, not just helping them make bad decisions.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. That's powerful. And like you said, it's kind of important because um, I think everyone has like their natural inclinations, and sometimes people will advise you to go against them, but it's like, I mean, just go in the direction that your sales are pointed almost like, and two, do something that you are one passionate about, and two, like you kind of said, like morally okay with. Like if you feel like, you know, like a villain every single time you watch someone get into a Tahoe they can't afford,
Yeah.
like you're like, dang, I just facilitated like marital issues. Like it's not gonna feel good. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I guess I would ask like what do you do now, and then what is like the biggest misconception that people have about what you do versus what you actually do?
So what I do is marketing. I still help out with sales sometimes depending on like the company I'm working with, but
Mhm.
primarily it's marketing.
Right.
Um, and I would say the biggest misconception of marketing is that like people think about it as manipulation, which
Mm,
it certainly can be, and I think it often is, used in that way. But like to me, the core of marketing is really branding. And
mm,
like branding in its abstract sense is like assignment of meaning, right? And
right,
so the way I see things is like things just are, like there's not really any inherent meaning to a vehicle. There's not a lot of inherent meaning to many things, right? But over time, you can like brand that as like useful. You can brand it as fun, as like entertaining, as like, whatever like good positive traits that company will try to associate it with. So,
right.
and I think vehicles is a good example of that because if you look at, Henry Ford, like he had with the Model T the challenge of trying to brand that as a useful thing to have, because
Yeah,
people, well, I just have my horse and buggy, like, and he's
right,
like, oh, this is better, like this is, and now vehicles like that's the other thing. It once like branding is often built off of different conceptions that people already have. So if they have misconceptions, that can be hard. But a lot of times, if you're a good marketer, you'll like play off of like the biases that people have that like play in your favor. So
right,
everybody now mostly believes that cars are useful. So you're not gonna spend a lot of time like trying to convince people in your marketing that your vehicle is useful because they know
right,
the value of it. But now you're gonna use it more of like, oh, this gives you status or this gives you fun factor, entertain, like
right.
whatever you know. So that's like what I would say is like really the core of what I do and like a little bit different than what people kind of think about it as because like in the simplest terms, like I think about it as like you are essentially defining like what different things are. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You're
yeah,
defining this bakery as a good bakery that makes like high quality pastries that is worth going to, all those things. And it's like you're defining this play place as fun and like
yeah,
safe and
yeah.
all kinds of things. So yeah, like that's really the core of it.
So just to make sure that I'm like understanding and let me know if you agree with what I'm about to say. I
Okay.
feel like sometimes people have misconceptions when it comes to marketing because when they run up against like a bad marketing campaign,
Yeah.
it like marks them in a specific way, but then the good marketing campaigns are so good that they don't even notice them happening to
Right.
them. And so they just notice the bad ones and they're like, "Oh, marketing is manipulative." And it's like no, like the good ones you just don't even notice because they are so good at what they do.
No, seriously, yeah, it's that's very true. It definitely sticks out more when something is bad or, they lied or misled you in
Mm,
their marketing and then you get the product or service and you're like that's not what it claimed to be.
right,
So that sticks out, but when it's good marketing and it's like a perfect fit for you and like you were introduced to the right product, right service, whatever, you often don't even really think about that as marketing, you're
yeah,
just wow, I'm really good at making purchasing decisions.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes the person feel like they're good at buying. That's
Right, exactly. So they want to take all the good credit and then give us the bad credit
that is
of
awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so I feel like that's like the first like check mark in the podcast is that good marketers make the person feel like they're a good buyer. Like
right.
it's truly powerful. Um, awesome. Okay, so. Um, moving on, I would say like what's like the biggest challenge that is facing the marketing industry right now?
I would say um the biggest challenge is um I would describe it as basically there's no barrier to entry, right? So
Okay.
I think the ease of people being able to get in and you know start a marketing agency or
Mhm.
like advertise marketing services to other
Mhm.
people is a challenge because it becomes so diluted and also it becomes um where there's just a lot of low quality,
Yeah.
services out there provided. So that again goes into that last question of like, it's a big misconception, but there's also a lot of truth to it as well, where, people do run into a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, or,
Hmm.
they don't understand the principles or like the fundamentals of it. And
Hmm.
so they, yeah, and part of that is because it's so simple. Like, you can build a website for pretty cheap, or a lot of places you can even have a free website, or just have a social media page which is free, and
Right.
then yourself a marketer and
Yeah.
start advertising to different businesses and stuff. And yeah, like zero experience, zero idea of what you're actually doing. So
Right.
that's definitely a challenge. Then I would say the other challenge is getting on the smaller side. Like, from my experience, the people I like to work with the best are like people that are starting out, because I think it's really fun to, help them craft a vision, help them like actually start a business, or,
Hmm.
you know, get a business like off the bare ground and, get going with it. But unfortunately, in my experience, those are the people that also like value it the least. And
Mm.
corporations are a lot more willing to like see the value, like they understand the value of marketing and, proper branding, all the things that some people will even see as cheesy, but I think are very pivotal, like mission statements, slogans, those kind of
Yeah.
things really can help craft a business. And like, that's your first impression that you're making to people. And it's also, especially with a mission statement, that's like your compass that helps you make business decisions going forward. So
Yeah.
if your statement is like, we want to be the most efficient in our field, then it's like, okay, once you're evaluating, do I hire this person, do I buy this equipment, do I do this or that, like, you can always refer back to like, well, what is our ultimate goal? And I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people don't have that, and so they're very like lost when it comes to a lot of business decisions. Like, they
Yeah.
can't, because you just at that point, it's like trying to get to a destination without a compass.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so then just to kind of like summarize your answer, the biggest challenges right now would be like oversaturated market
Right.
with, amateurs, to put it bluntly. And
Yeah.
then two, like people that don't quite understand the fundamentals.
Right. So yeah, I would say yeah, that's a pretty good way to summarize it. It's on both sides really, but yeah, like trying to get the customer to understand the difference between like effective marketing and, not effective, and then also trying to get your yeah, like you summarized it pretty well, but that
Okay.
could really be a whole podcast episode for
Yeah.
not to dive too deep into it, but
Okay. Okay, good. So for the sake of not diving too deep, moving
yeah.
on, I guess what is one piece of advice you would give to someone just starting out, and also reflecting on your last answer of like an oversaturated market? Like, how does someone who's just starting out, like, I guess, jump over all of those people that have 5 followers that are like spam calling all their
Yeah.
potential clients, like how do they jump over that oversaturation?
I would say, okay, two things. So if you're just starting out, I think you should really get clear on your vision,
Hmm.
and like, craft a good mission statement, and maybe even slogan. That's a little bit less necessary, but it is good because it's what you can remember, but also what customers can remember too. So like Walmart, like save money, live better. It's like that instantly lets you know this is the purpose of the store. This is why
Mm.
you're in there. And it also lets everybody know throughout the corporation, like, this is ultimately what we're trying to achieve. So whether you're
Right.
a procurement, a person buying their like buying products for them to sell, or whether you're any level in that corporation, like everybody's super clear on what
Mm.
that is. And I think maybe, especially as you grow, maybe people won't know your mission statement as much as your slogan. So I think those two things are very valuable. And I know a lot of people at the lower end kind of see it as like cheesy or like unimportant, but it is really kind of a major key. I would say the second thing is trying to jump over, or cut through the saturation and like stand out. I would say um, the best thing you can probably do is like work on a pitch. Like there's something called an elevator pitch, which is like
Right.
within 30 seconds you should be able to break down like what you do or like what kind of value you could provide to somebody.
Yeah.
And then making that successful goes into having a good successful mission statement. So
Yeah.
like kind of build off of each other. But yeah, once you really know clearly what you're trying to do, then you can clearly learn how to concisely express that to other people.
Hmm.
And you have to be willing to move on quickly. So realize that not everybody's going to be your customer, not everybody's going to appreciate you or value what you do, and oftentimes it is a waste of time trying to convince them otherwise, because now you're just swimming up water, or swimming upstream. So it's better
Yeah.
to say like, hey, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I bring, and if they don't value that, okay, cool, thanks, next person.
Right. Right. Yeah. I
So
mean, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, like, even, in some of the businesses that, I've had and started, it just, like, managing expectations is a lot more to having a business than people even realize.
right.
Um, like one of the things that one of my friends talked with me about is like I used to have like a strict start time.
Mm,
But with a service-based business, like it's not always guaranteed that like my first job of the morning is going to go exactly on time and then the second one. And so like by the third job, like if I was like on time for the first job and like 10 minutes late to the second job and then like um I'd be like 20 minutes late for the third job. And so like managing those expectations and letting people know like, hey, this is not a appointment. I'll be here. And so what I started just telling people is like morning, afternoon, and evening.
mm.
And then they don't even expect you to you know, be there at a specific time, which kind of goes into what you were talking about. Um and
And I think,
so oh,
and just to add to that, I think it's important where, again, if you have like a very clear vision of like what your business is offering,
right,
it's easier to explain that as well. Like, hey, I'm not necessarily the fastest guy, or I'm not, a super structured like organization that is going to do it this, and this way. We're very like custom, we're very, you know, one on one, and we're going to give you like an individualized result. But that also means because I'm going to give you that time, somebody else might get that time too, which is going to push you
right,
back. And so, like, if they know and accept that, and they're like, okay, like, I'm going to go with you because you are more results focused, you are more focused on these aspects that I value, then that's important. Versus somebody that's like, hey, look, I don't really care too much about that. I have a super strict schedule. And
hmm,
then that might be a different company, that can, okay, they're going to stick to the schedule no matter what. But that also might mean, hey, things get cut off when you're, detailing somebody's car.
exactly.
And yeah, like, hey, look, I couldn't finish it all. I gave you 30 minutes. I gotta get to the next guy,
Right.
So
Yeah, it's definitely like you said, it's something that like I didn't think about at first when I started my company, but like even after the first month of doing it, I was like, okay, I need to like manage time and manage expectations a lot better.
yeah.
Um, and so for the sake of we're running a little bit out of time for this Zoom call, but and so if we could do these next few questions a little bit quicker. My next question would be, what is a recent win that you have had that you're particularly proud of and why?
I think just crafting my overall strategy and like really, really narrowing down a process to actually kind of disseminate, like what
Yeah,
I've learned over like many years.
right.
So, yeah, overall, my overarching brand is Evergreen Insights, and
Hmm.
it's, based on like Evergreen business principles that are going to be, they're not like fads, they're not just something that's fly by night or like a trend that may work now, but in 5 years from now, when there's a different marketplace, it's like completely irrelevant. It's like
Right.
like time tested principles that like have always been relevant and always will be.
Okay, very good. Okay, so what tools or resources are most valuable to your success?
I would say knowledge definitely. So a couple of books I like are like Blue Ocean Strategy, Power of Habit, different books that really kind of break down, why it is people do what they do, like why they buy what they buy.
Hmm.
Yeah, those kind of things. As a marketer, I think is very important to understand, probably
Hmm.
more so than any other tool or thing like that. But obviously, as a tool, social media is very important. And then yeah, kind of what you're touching on earlier, just creating the process, being organized, those kind of things are extremely valuable. So anything that can help facilitate that, which there's so many apps now that, it's kind of like individualized, but CRMs are great.
Hmm.
Um, Managing customers for actually creating a profile, being able to, you know, go back and look at all your correspondence, have something that reminds you what you need to do at certain different deadlines. Yeah, those kind of things.
Beautiful. I'm gonna add a B part to that question
Running out of time.
because I was with you yesterday and I saw you had a book. So what book did you just pick up?
So I picked up How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I haven't read it yet, but I've heard a lot about it, a lot of good things, and I'm
Yeah.
interested to dive into it. I think that's really important, obviously, for any kind of consulting or any. Most businesses are going to be person to person, so you have to know how to network, how to,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I've been recommended that book over 5 times in my lifetime, and I didn't actually read it until my mom told me to read it. Because like, mom always knows best, and when your mom tells you to read a book, you have to read the book. So, I highly recommend the book. I love the book. I think like a lot of people talk about like help me out here. What are the two main books that people tell you to read? It's like The Richest Man in Babylon, and then what's that other one that people always tell you to read?
I don't know. I get a lot of recommendations, so
Okay, okay. Well, I guess what I'll say is that How to Win Friends and Influence People is my favorite business book of all time. And
yeah,
so anyone who is an entrepreneur or looking to upgrade their business, I strongly believe that you should read that book at least like once a year.
yeah. And I'll come back after I've read it, and maybe we can talk a little bit more in depth. But Psychology of Money is also a really good one.
Yes,
It
Psychology of
kind
Money is very good.
Yeah, it goes to show you like your mindset is going to be huge in determining like how successful you are in life, let alone in business. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we have 2 more minutes left. Last question. What is your short-term goal and long-term goals?
So short term, I'm just still building out my marketing branding agency and getting more clients that I want to work with, working on projects that I'm passionate about, that kind of thing. Long term, I definitely, want to build out that to a point where I can really just start creating my own brands. I think
Right.
I kind of tried to do both a little bit before, and it made it harder to make either one like really, take off to a good level. So I
Yeah.
think, kind of focusing on one thing at a time. But yeah, like ultimately, I have so many business ideas. So it's like once I build out this marketing agency, it's like I can just use them as my own personal, like, all right, let's build this business, let's build
Right.
that,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's awesome, and I'm super excited for that, and I'm super excited to see me and you are good friends, so I think we're both excited to see what me and you do this year.
Yeah.
And so last question would be where can listeners connect with you online to learn more about your business?
Yeah, so I'm expanding my social medias right now. I have a TikTok which is redefining will or redefining dot will. So you can go there and yeah, other than that, LinkedIn. Those are pretty much the social media platforms right now.
Okay.
Um,
What's
uh,
your LinkedIn profile?
it's William Reese.
William Reese. Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you for, coming on and talking with me and wish you all the success in the world. And yeah, with that, we'll end the show. So thank everybody for listening and catch you next time.